Aloha and welcome back to another episode of Ahana Packers Edition Pod. What? What's
Oh,
up?
you're good.
Oh,
Uh, it's
don't
it's
edit that. That's
freezing
that's
on
your
my end
line.
again.
Oh no, he played the whole intro for me. Just like the Packers.
Oh, I know, but it froze halfway in the middle for me.
Oh, butts. Just like the Packers, Joe and I are excellent out of the gates tonight. But unlike the Packers, we did not shit the bed. It is StreamYard that is doing it for us. Uh, I'm Mike out in Honolulu. That's Iowa Joe. Between the two of us, we combined to block the same number of defensive linemen as Royce Newman did today for the Packers. And as such, our review will be about as concise as you'll get for a preseason game where no one of real significance played for the Packers, but there was a whole lot of excrement that hit the fan. Joe, I know we kind of touched and went a little bit how I have no notes for this one today, but I mean,
I
at least you got to celebrate your Hawkeye for making an interception today.
yeah, I had this conversation earlier with a couple other people. You can't be happy, you can't be sad, you can't be anything about this game because it's a preseason game.
Yep.
And it was going to be one-sided anyway because the Packers played almost no starters and the Broncos played all starters. So,
And long into the game too. They played them into the
right.
third quarter.
And to be fair, what was the final score? It was only like 27-2.
7-2.
Okay, well, the backups for the Packers still only gave up like I don't even think it was 20 points. Was it 14 and then somebody got a pick six and that bumped it to
They
20?
basically the offense spotted the Broncos 10 points with the long interception by that the long interception that Clifford threw, and then Pratt got strip sacked at early in the third quarter. So that pretty much gave away 10 points to the Broncos at that point. But yeah, other than that, and then the rest of the points were scored in like no man's land in a nowhere, like you said, a nowhere preseason game. So I know
Right. So
I've seen a couple different reaction articles where it's like there's some problems, and like you can't sugarcoat all of it. There are definitely some issues
there
that
are.
popped up today, but at the same time, like you said, it's really hard. We're the two of us are digging into our other segments for this one because it's just really hard to draw any big conclusions from this game because it was it was a JV versus Vars game for all intents and purposes, being honest and realistic about it.
And another thing I said was this happened to just solidify some of the 53-man decisions that need to be made. Uh, so, I mean, let's just go ahead and move to the offensive side. It showed that, you know, Royce Newman needed to be gone like yesterday. Uh, the backup quarterbacks, as of the moment, aren't ready. I think that's the only decision that really is still going to be come down to the wire is who's going to be the backup this year, Pratt or Clifford, and who they think they can sneak onto the practice squad. Uh, I I want to say maybe the
Jacob Eason
Sean.
didn't get cut for this.
Yeah. Well, and I even seen like Westendorf and them like pitching ideas for bringing in a veteran backup, which is all right. Yeah, no problem. But I had to talk. My mom, of course, talked to me about the game, and well, if Jordan Love gets hurt, you know the Packers are screwed. We know that's going to be an issue. That's an issue with 90% of the teams in the
Yeah.
NFL right now. But, and there is a big but on this, he was also playing with fellow third string, you know, second, third, fourth string players. It's if he were to play during the season, he's at least going to have starters. He's going to
Yeah.
have starting offensive line. He's going to have starting receivers. He's going to have his starting tight ends. He's going to have his starting fucking defense. I mean, he's going to have his or whoever takes up the backup role is going to have their starters if they have to go in for any kind of time
Yeah.
season. So that's not to say that that gives them a pass by no means.
Yeah, it won't
Because
paper mache over everything, but it would make a difference to have guys that can actually make a simple block.
right,
Like what we basically found out, the big one you pointed out is the O line. Like we don't even need to go over the Royce Newman thing again because we've made our peace and several times over on that one. The biggest part I saw, other than that, is that what today's game proved is Green Bay does not have a swing tackle worth a damn on this roster right now. Um, it's not Andre Dillard. It's not any of the guys. We didn't see Caleb Jones play when it quote unquote mattered. Where they played they played Telfort and oh shucks, I'm totally blanking on our
Glover. They had Glover out there
Glover.
for a while,
Yeah,
and I
and the
thought he
two of
looked
them
pretty
were
decent.
yeah. He struggled at the beginning, but I mean I do think it's comparing polished poop to unpolished poop, but I thought he played better than Telfort did because Telfort was about as useful as a cracked speed bump today. And I couldn't believe they played him at left tackle after they got Dillard out. And yeah,
Well,
it's
that goes back to what you said. They're trying to figure out what their swing tackle situation is going to be.
yeah.
So you got to have them play both sides. I think Caleb Jones played a little well, but spoiler alert, I don't think he's going to end up on the roster just because I think
I don't either.
he
I only
he's
throw his
used up
name out
too many of
because
his
he's a guy
chances.
that yeah, I only throw his name out because he's a guy that he different kind of player, different kind of athlete, but he got the Yosh treatment where they've kept him around for a couple years kind of thing. But like you said, he's never Yosh at least had moments where you're like, maybe this guy should be, maybe he should be moving up the depth chart kind of thing. None of these guys, they're all by default moving up. And unfortunately, they're just, potato sack racing each other to get to the swing tackle spot on this roster. So, yeah, it doesn't leave you in the biggest, warmest feeling of positions. But I mean, yeah, I think the number 3 offensive tackle is a way bigger concern than whoever quarterback 2 is because as what was it Tom Moore I think once said we don't practice for screwed. So of course he
Yeah.
used a much more colorful term than I use, but yeah. So
I mean, and to continue on with the offensive line, I think we found out tonight that the Sean Ryan at center experiment wasn't that great. He may be a guard, a good guard, but I don't think he's that great of a center. Uh, and I don't think
definitely
he's
not
that.
with Newman next to him.
Yeah, no shit. And I don't think he's that great of a run blocker. I mean, he held up pretty good in pass blocking, but Emmanuel Wilson and well, Merriweather did a little bit, but the guys that were running the ball just couldn't catch him, get a
Yeah.
lane to get. I mean, Wilson at least fought for what he could get out of
Yeah.
it.
And his one
Uh,
good run, he had to still break a tackle in the backfield. So yeah, like it was tough sledding all day. I mean, basically, like you said, no one really had shining moments. Like there were like 2 or 3 guys who had a shining moment. On offense, though, it was just a lot of like confirming priors, as a lot of different guys will use the term. And it was Royce Newman is still who we knew he was. Tyler Davis still can't block a soul.
Needs to be gone. Him and Newman need to both be gone because
Yeah,
he couldn't block, he couldn't catch, he
he
couldn't
had
fucking do
you had
anything.
that sequence where Davis misses two pretty relatively simple blocks on run plays, and then Newman gets dropped into Clifford's lap on what was the play. Clifford ends up getting sacked after he rolls out, and then that drive gets extended via Dan Whelan being the hero he is and selling a roughing the kicker penalty. But and that's the other side of it. Like for the whole first half of the game, the Packers' 2 best, most productive plays were 2 penalties, and
Yeah.
so one of them was that roughing the kicker, and then the other one was a face mask after Clifford just for whatever reason couldn't handle a snap from under center, and it was a comedy of errors from the start, and it just like yeah. I think they said we didn't even crack 70 yards of offense with Clifford as quarterback, so and it's
And
pretty telling
Pratt,
that I know it's not like you can't, like you said, you can't take too much from it, but the fact that LaFleur was like, I'm not even gonna send you out there to bother trying some kind of like 30-second drive with Clifford. It's like, yeah, dude, like you totally screwed the pooch tonight, Clifford.
And Pratt, I think, is still just too raw because
Yeah,
he had Malik Heath deep, and he just way
he got,
overshot him on that.
yeah, yeah. He was too excited. He's like, oh my god, someone's open and I have time, and it
Yeah,
like that's the one guy you can't airmail it to because he's not gonna catch up to it.
and but he had him wide open. I mean, he had the defender on his ass, but he still had like 1 or 2 yards
Yep,
separation on him. That
yep.
if he would have placed it better, he would have had it.
And
So
then I
I
think the
mean,
next play he had DeBose and he threw it like a foot over DeBose's head, kind of thing. So, yep,
yeah. And I think that battle is starting to settle, as much as I hate to say it, between Melton and DeBose, just because, and we can talk about this a little bit later with special teams, but DeBose was playing, played that gunner role a little bit better than Melton did, and Melton still struggled a little bit with getting open and making the catch. Now, whether or
yeah.
not that's QB play or that's him just flat out
It's
struggling.
really hard. It's really hard to take anything from this game in terms of wide receiver production because the O line couldn't block. The quarterbacks were just not able to see the field properly, and then even when they were making off target throws and stuff. So yeah, it's a
Right, but
really
even when
hard day
the
to.
when the
Yeah,
passes were coming, like there was the one like uh where they had Melton pull like a running back screen or a halfback screen, and he just couldn't do anything with it once he caught it. He was just stuck. And
yeah.
that one you got to kind of, if the defense, even though the defense made a hell of a play on it, he still couldn't make that move to make that defender miss. And DeBose at least had a little bit of stats to put up. But like I said, the special teams is what's going to come down for those two. And DeBose had a couple of good plays as gunner, and it seemed like Melton had one bad play as gunner, if I remember
Yeah, he
off the
just
top
didn't
of my
find the
head.
ball. Just didn't
Yeah,
find the ball. And yeah, he went and hit the returner instead of looking for the football. So yeah.
yeah. So I just, uh, um, I don't know. I think, like you said at the beginning, it's hard to judge off a lot of this stuff, but I do think a lot of the 53-man roster decisions were were settled as today.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Granger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Granger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRANGER, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
I'm going to skip defense for the moment and go right to special teams because I said this is one of my knee-jerk reactions at the end. I think Greg Joseph is not going to win the kicking competition.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be what we brought him in for, was to be able to kick in the conditions, and he kicked it wide right
Yeah.
and from the left hash mark.
And like that was, that was what we were kind of talking about with Ummer and Bernie last week is like, oh, he kicks it straight down the middle kind of thing, but it's like, well, yes, like you'd like every kick to go straight down the middle, but that was one where we were kind of talking about it last week how Anders did have that draw when he kicked it from the left hash last week, and I know it looks like it's going on, but it's like Joseph one, his kick didn't have a prayer tonight of making anything. He nailed that thing straight on, and it was going to Wyoming before it made any kind of hook.
Yeah, that one bugged me because it's like you're on the left hash mark and you missed it wide right. We have a major issue here. I can
and
understand
and not
you.
it wasn't even in like scraping distance of the right upright. He just launched that thing. I don't think it hit the net in back of the field goal post. So
So I think I think if anything they'll stick with Anders and try to stash that Ozzy on the practice squad.
If anything, you might see Hale get a kick next week. To maybe
And
some kickoff attempts, and yeah, see
well,
what he
and
brings.
to be
Yeah.
fair, again, there was only one field goal for the whole friggin' game, so but that's what you're hoping Josephs can do, and he didn't.
You know, it's bad when they show like I think Anders was gonna try the field goal at the end of the first half, and you know it's bad when they show the kicker warming up on the net, and then he looks out and he's like, "Oh, wait, what happened?" Because Clifford threw the bad interception. So,
Yeah,
and I know our friend Jason Perrone, like right before the interception, he goes, "So who's getting this kick?" And like seconds later, never mind.
yeah. So, but we know Whelan is going to be the punter.
He had a
We're
good game. I
pretty.
thought he had a good game tonight. Yeah.
I think there was only one punt that I don't know if he misjudged the wind
Yeah.
or what.
And I
Where
and it's one of those where it's mile high. You don't kick here very often, and I don't, yeah, like you said, I don't know what the wind situation was, because the one Melton missed, it bounced where it's supposed to at like the 4 yard line, and if Melton finds the ball, that's tapped back into the field of play kind of thing and stuff. Yeah, the other one he put it like 6 yards deep into the end zone, but I think that one just kind of hung up on him and stuff. So
yeah.
nothing
So
too upsetting. Yeah.
we know he's going to be the punter. We know Orzalik, as of right now, is going to be the long snapper, unless they bring Bowden back for a third time or whatever.
3 strikes, you're out.
But
Not
I'm
sure who that's referring to.
yeah, I'm not sure either. Can you tell it's kind of late for us right now? um,
And there's nothing in this game worth talking about. It's like Ant-Man when he goes, "Everything is bad out here, guys."
uh, but I'm pretty confident to say that Anders wins the competition, and they're just going to try stashing Hale on the practice squad and
Yeah,
just and give him kicks in practice. And if it gets too bad with Anders, then they just go ahead and bring him up and get
find
rid of
another
Anders.
guy to. Yeah,
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 unless after final cuts there's a guy that they just can't not bring in.
yeah.
So I think I read an article. Who was it? Was it Westendorf that or wrote something about two possibilities, and one of them was from the Browns, and the other one was,
Oh, York or whatever. Yeah,
and then I think the other one was like Joey Sly. I can't. I think he's with
yeah,
the
yeah,
Panthers
yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And unless something like that happens where it's just a can't miss guy, and Anders is really shit the bed, and you don't trust Hale as of yet, then you just bring in, because the way it sounded from the practices, Hale was doing pretty good. I think he was
Mm-hmm.
at like 90% or something like
Yeah.
that for
And
his
it's
tries.
hard for him because everyone's like, "Oh my god, he's at 70%," but it's like, but he missed like two in the first day or whatever kind of thing, and
Yeah,
so that's that's like getting an F in your first class, and it's gonna take a long time to bring that up. So I think since that first day, I think he's up in the high 80s or low 90s or something like that. So I mean, it is kind of wild how like you have a long snapper, you have your punter, and like you only have so many reps to practice kicking because like those guys, you can do I know that you want the quote unquote the live operation and stuff, but you would think that you would just have those guys kicking on an end of the field where it's like just get them up kind
or
of thing.
there's three practice fields at Lambeau,
Right.
or I mean,
Yeah.
down the street from Lambeau. You've got Nitschke for the open public. You got Hudson for the indoor facility,
Yeah.
and then you got Hinkle Field on the other side that you can do
Yeah.
out in the elements. Send the whole fucking kicking unit on the other side, and just
Yeah.
for the full 100 or 90 minutes worth of practice, do nothing but kick.
Especially when you're doing these split squad practices and stuff like that. But yeah, I think like you said, this is just another one that it's gonna go by. And I do, and okay, and I know that there's a big part of it where people are gonna be like, Anders is winning it by default. there's an edge to that. Joseph could have kicked better, and that's always going to be the case. But Anders has, he hasn't had that many opportunities across 2 preseason games, but he's made his kicks in the preseason games. I know he's had some rough practices here and there, but at the same time, he has relatively outperformed Joseph, and I do think he is the better of the two at this new kickoff rule stuff. So, it all needs to get taken into consideration. And hey, I'll be with all of you if he misses an important kick again. I'll also be throwing my hat on the ground and stuff. But it's one of those where unless you find your Tucker or like a Chris Boswell like the Steelers have or something, you're just hunting for that guy for as long. And Mason had his moments a few times in his career where, like, 2012 and 2018, he definitely probably should have been cut. Like, no disrespect to Mason, but he had a lot of faith built up in him that at times you're kind of like, does he really deserve it? And you look at that 2012 season, a couple of his kicks that he missed, that could have cost them a home playoff game against the Niners that playoff. So, it is what it is. And you just hope that, whoever does win the job is able to seize the opportunity and make the most of it. That's really what you're hoping for here.
Well, that's what we were talking about all last year with Anders is, I know it's hard to compare Mason and Anders, but they're the 2 drafted kickers in the last 120 years or whatever it is. So you got to kind of compare them. The big difference that we saw all of last year with Anders is if he missed a kick, he didn't let it bug him. Yep. We didn't have to worry about it throughout the rest of the game because he would come back and, for the most part, be pretty solid for it. Whereas when we were with Mason, if he missed one, you knew he was good for missing more throughout the game because for some reason he was letting it get in his head.
Yeah.
So I just, like I said, I do by default think Anders won just because it's better to go with the devil you know than the devil you don't. And you at least know what Anders is going to do for the most part, and at least he's got an upside to him, whereas Joseph is at his point.
Yeah.
There's no up to him. There's only here and down because he's been that long in the NFL. I mean, he's not old by any means, but I mean, he's been in the NFL
he's
long enough.
He's been around the block. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's been in the NFL long enough that he's at his ceiling. There's no more upward momentum he can get.
Yep.
And hell, we don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if the Aussie and
the Irish
the Irish guy knew the kickoff rules a little bit better because just kind of watching a little bit of rugby in the Olympics, you can tell they know the kicks a little bit better and they can place them a little bit better for like kickoff stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me wonder if maybe he'd be better off with the kickoff rules. I don't know. Did he spend any time in like the XFL or the UFL or anything like that? Because if he did, then he definitely knows better because this is a rule adapted straight from that league.
Yeah, I'm not super sure about that.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and just jump with the defense then, huh?
Yeah, more of the same. It's a lot of just JV against the Vars. Hafley's not showing many, if any, cards. The one blitz he called, the defense totally biffed it. I did tweet about it where, like, the couple plays before, Carl Brooks kicked someone's ass so hard that he drew a hold and what's it called? And he drew a hold, got the sack, and then they could have kept the sack and stuff, but they ended up taking up the hold, and then Kalen King misses a tackle on the sideline on 3rd and long. But that was the play where it's like, okay, like Hafley actually sends the house, and then you got 5 of the guys running right into the middle of a blocker, and it's like, okay, you gotta like attack a shoulder and try to go through the path of least resistance. So but But other than that, like I said, Morton obviously had the highlight sack play. You had Welsh with the nice, I know everyone's gonna say like, oh, but I think it was Mosby who applied the pressure and then it deflected off of someone's hand and stuff. But I was like, that's still not an easy play. Like that, those tipped balls that hang up there for what feels like a year, those are some of the hardest ones to make because you start to like salivate, as a defender, you're like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do with this thing? Am I going to house it and stuff? And I appreciated that Welsh caught it, secured it, and, he got it back into positive territory. And of course, our offense did zilch with it, but it was
Well,
good
not
to see
just that,
something positive.
but usually with them pop-ups, it allows more people to gather around, so more mistakes can tend to happen. Because you've got like 3 defenders and 3 offensive players fighting for the ball, so it can bounce around like that. So he did
Yeah.
well. Cox had a sack. I thought he was doing pretty good all through the night.
Yeah, it just didn't look good on
Lousy,
that one. He just didn't look good on that one touchdown run by Stidham because he got smoked trying to catch up to the play. But his pass rush was okay. It's just like I said, this is and you would like guy you do want to see guys win their one-on-one plays more often, but at the same time, I think Mike Wall said it on a Locked On Packers episode where he's like, the average fan does not give enough credit to the difference between a starter at the NFL level and a backup. Like, there is a distinctive talent difference, and we saw it tonight. You had a few guys. There's a handful of guys that played tonight for the Packers that are either draft picks with upside or guys who have flashed in the past, kind of thing and stuff. And by the middle of the second quarter, you're like, oh my God, can we just fast forward? This is painful to watch. And like, do we have to track the rest of this game at this point, kind of thing? But it was good to see, like I said, Carl Brooks was one. It was good to see him make plays despite playing with nobody around him. For all intents and purposes, he's a near starter. He's like a 1A starter type of player, and he's playing with guys who are not gonna make the final roster, kind of thing. So it's good and basically Denver did the thing you expect them to. Brooks makes a play on first down, and then the next 2 plays, it's like we're triple teaming him. He's not getting any more single blocks. But
yeah, because he kept getting pushed out. I mean, with his speed, he kept getting pushed out of making the play a lot of times. That, from what I saw,
yeah,
after he would get like one play, and then the next play he was getting washed out because they were using the momentum and his speed to get him out of the way. I honestly, even though it won't show up in the stat line, I thought Jonathan Ford kind of looked decent at holding his own. Like I said, he wasn't making plays, but he was taking up the blocks for other people to make plays. I don't think it's going to do enough to keep him on,
no,
get him a roster spot, which sucks because I was a big Jonathan Ford fan. I think, and I know, again, to put a disclaimer out there, I know it's hard to say anything because of just the way the whole team played. I think this had to be one of Enigbare's worst games, and he really struggled out there. I don't know what the issue is, but that was just from what I saw. I could be completely wrong, but
yeah, it looked like he was so in his head about, like, because he had the one play where he's like reading the play action, and then like he gets his legs chopped out by the running back, kind of thing and stuff, and you can see him like kind of like going like, this is a preseason game. I shouldn't have to like think, or there shouldn't be this many levels to a preseason game, kind of thing. So yeah, that was a little disappointing to see that he didn't have too much of an impact. But Lucas was kind of quiet tonight too. But also, I do think I tie Lucas's more to like the lack of any sort of a game plan. Hafley kind of just said, yeah, and I know they do have some game planning that goes into these games, but it really was like it really, from what we can see, it really did just look like Hafley was like, just go out there, try to play at 100%, just try to go at 100 miles per hour, but we're not gonna, there's nothing super sophisticated. There's no like cross dog blitz from the inside linebacker or anything like that. We didn't see, like a true mug look or anything. Like I think it was nice to see Oladapo get out there. I know he had like a rough first opportunity where he kind of like broke down in space a little funny and missed a tackle in space. But then the next play, that run gets called back for a hold, and then the next play he's lined up in the C gap, I think, and then he comes through and makes the tackle at like for after a gain of 1. So and he hasn't played much in so far in preseason, so it's good to see him just get some live reps against an actual opponent and get on the field and stuff. So
I want to say Kevin Harlan and John Kuhn said something about Hafley's defense that, and I'm trying to remember what the wording exactly was. They either said it was like Hafley said that they were only going to work out of like 3 formations or 3 looks or something like that throughout the whole game. So we didn't see anything out of the defensive playbook.
yeah,
It was just a very vanilla defense, which is another reason why when the starters for Denver were in there, they were
and
having
ours
a
weren't.
tendency.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought Evan
And
Williams had a little bit of a weak game,
yeah,
especially he got bailed out. He got
I know
bailed out.
some people were trying to say it's a heady play, but it's like you cannot like okay, and I admit I thought the play was a lot like more legit than it turned. Like obviously when you see the replay and it's like, oh yeah, Nix is very much across the line of scrimmage, but live I was like, why are they reviewing this? Like this is a waste of our time. And then when you see the back view of it, I was like, the play starts I think on like the 10-yard line or something. You cannot vacate. I know that Nix can run and stuff, but you cannot vacate a front pylon receiver to go chase the quarterback until he has definitively broken the line of scrimmage by a few yards. Like yes, and that's the thing, it was like 3rd and 1, so it's like if he breaks the line of scrimmage, he's got a first down. So don't worry about it. Like you know what I mean? Like you got to make the tackle, yes, but it's not like stopping him from gaining 2 yards makes a difference. Like he just needs he needs to trip over his own feet going forward and he's going to get a first down. So it's like play your responsibility, but I do think that was a moment of like, oh, I can light his ass up for once kind of thing and
Teammates.
stuff. Yeah. So it's one of those where I you're seeing some different people say like, oh, like he knew. I was like, I don't think he knew. Like and like I said, you cannot play it that tight because if you don't have the right replay angle, if the replay system craps out, you just given up a touchdown for a gamble that's really not worth it. So yeah, you cannot take that gamble. I thought Bullard was okay. Like, and that's okay. And so on the whole topic of like Hafley saying that they're only drilling certain things, I know some people will be like, oh, like I'm fine with it because it's a totally different system. You've got like half the players are new and a chunk of them are rookies. So it's the whole we've got to make sure our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted at every turn we can. And it's kind of like what we dealt with the receivers last year where you had all these young receivers, the 2 veterans pulled their hamstrings in the preseason, and it took the first 2 months of the season for the rookies to catch up with the playbook. Hafley is trying to bring along all his young guys, but also he has to still cross-train all his vets because they're not vets in his system. They're rookies also, intellectually they're rookies in his system. So I'm fine with him putting stuff on paper. And and I saw Uglum, he kind of made the like, snarky remark about Sean Payton like putting shit on film in a preseason game and stuff. And on one hand, it's like, yes, you do need to see Knicks execute different stuff, but on the other, it's like you're running like a double drag cross the field play action under route that it's like, for all intents and purposes, Nick should be able to make that pass no matter what is happening. And it's like, you're going to unveil that in week 2 of the preseason. So, I mean, to each their own and stuff, but I'm okay with Hafley going the route he is. Like I said, you just like to see guys make more plays than they did. Win your one-on-ones. guys are going to get double teamed. Guys are going to be outmatched. I'm not at all surprised that Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick got theirs against our backup to our backup secondary, because those are guys who at different times have been Pro Bowl level performers in terms of their production on the field. It's like, and then you go a step further and Sean Payton has to show he's a genius. So it's like, I'm going to run halfway deep into my playbook in a preseason game. So I'm fine with Halfley just saying, like, get your work in. But like LaFleur said after the game, you would have liked to see better out of the guys too. So
Yeah.
that's the like you said, you can't be so upset about it, but you also don't have to be happy about it. And we know LaFleur is definitely not happy about what he saw out there tonight.
Well, and there was some stupid things that went on, and you could see it was kind of frustrating LaFleur on the sideline because, I mean, I'm not a lip reader by no means, but he was getting, pretty verbal over there, and especially on the defensive lineman that jumped the snap. And he just looks at him as he's running off the field, and he says something to him,
Yeah,
and it's just like, yeah, I can see him getting frustrated. But the one thing that I worried about, and this would be the thing that I would be working on all week this week, is they reverted back to just throwing shoulders and shit for tackling.
yeah.
They weren't form tackling. They were just, pushing and throwing their shoulders in hopes to knock them down. And it's like, I understand you want to make the hit, but make sure you're taking the guy down.
And this is a week after we were just lauding them for how well they tackled against the Browns too. But
Yep.
yeah, like Kalen King had two bad ones on the same drive. One was the bad whiff on that 3rd and long play where he broke all three of the critical rules from making a tackle at angle. He led with the wrong shoulder and put his head on the wrong side of the guy. He didn't use his arms and he ducked his head at the point of contact. So it's like you guaranteed a whiff unless like the guy tripped over the grass after you passed by him, kind of thing. So
well, even Bullard did the same. Not really did what King did, but on one stop, he just threw his body and threw his shoulder into it, but he didn't wrap. Yep. And the guy just like shrugged it off and got another couple of yards out of it. So it just, they kind of reverted. So if it was me as the defensive coordinator, that's what we're working on the whole next week here.
Yep, absolutely. But I think we'll just be talking in circles if we stay with this one any longer.
I do want to give props to Morton just for his play. For only being in the system.
It was a very nice play. Yeah, it was a very nice rip through and shed his blocker really quickly. And as much as we can bag on Zach Wilson, there was nothing he could have done there because the only thing he could have done was save himself the hit, but that would have been a safety because it would have been grounding. So like,
that was on a stunt too. You could see him stunting, and Morton came through. And for a guy, like I was going to say, for a guy who's only been in the system for like a week or two because he was picked up off waivers, that was a hell of a play. I said give him the game ball for the fucking game because he's the only one that scored any points.
Yes.
He made my roster just for that friggin' play because he was the only one that scored any points.
Just give him a real D lineman's number, 60 on a defensive end. That looks so bad.
So, yeah, that's about all I've got to. I mean, like you said, we'll just be talking in circles about it, but I'm just trying to think of anything off the top of my head that was like egregious, and half the game was just egregious. So
it was. I took a nap. We were on the outer islands. We were on the Big Island this weekend. We flew back at 8 a.m. this morning, so we were up at like 4. And I took a nap heading into the game. And about halfway through the second quarter, I was like, I should have just kept napping. I could have gotten the cliff notes.
I thought the same thing. I didn't sleep well last night, and then I woke up a little bit earlier than I normally did. So about halfway through, I'm like, damn, I got to make me some tea. I got to get some caffeine boost going on here. Otherwise, we're not going to record tonight. I got to find my stuff. This is how unprepared we are at the moment.
But so you go work on the next segment, and basically LaFleur, he's kind of mum on the starters playing next week. very non-committal. I get the feeling that whether on some side the starters are gonna make a push to try and just, even if it is just one drive on each side, I do think they're like, we want to see a little bit of action, because of the, the new setup with how preseason into the 17-week schedule goes. There's, even with Green Bay playing on a Friday, there's like 10 days off between the two, between the third preseason game and the first regular season game. So those guys are gonna, and they won't have played since week 1. So um hopefully you get to see more of that. I know that they're still gonna want to sit a bunch of guys, but you'd like to see Zach Tom get some live reps. You'd like to see Rashid, Rashid, as good as he looked week 1, you'd still like to see him get as many live reps as he can get. And maybe see the backup quarterbacks behind some of these starting O linemen, just to give them a chance out there. I know that they've got to play better on their own, but you can't just have turnstiles out there protecting quote unquote protecting them. So Joe, that's your couple minutes. Have I bought you enough time on your end?
Yeah, for the moment. I'm trying to decide. Obviously, we're going to do our newest segment. Everything's messing up today. But our boom roasted, there was numerous ones throughout the week that I kept an eye out on, and I mean, obviously I could go back to the well to our good friend over at ESPN Milwaukee, because he had a real wing dinger. I didn't get a chance to pull up the audio, but I do have the quote, and I don't know. Didn't you say supposedly one of them reached out to you for the audio from last week's?
Yeah, sorry, Alex. Sorry, I did not get a chance to go back through it, and Stroof's whole thing is he was trying to find a clip of it where he can use a one that doesn't have an F-bomb in the middle of it. But I think we kind of went off the rails in that one last week, just because between you, me, Ummer, and Bernie, we were all like, what the bleep is going on out in the rest of the world? But
well, we'll go ahead and do this one, and it's a quote from him. There's a 39-second clip. Like I said, unfortunately, I didn't pull up the audio for it this time, but the quote they have is from Kyle Wallace again. I have reports of Bo Nix lighting it up. I don't have reports of Jordan Love lighting it up. Hopefully this was a wake-up call. A wake-up call for what? That Jordan Love wasn't worth the fucking money that you paid him, or that the Packers paid him? Or maybe they weren't going to put everything in the world for everybody to see out in the open, and they were just going vanilla to get the reps in? I mean, I'm starting to really figure out that this guy is a major clickbait, shock jock type thing, and I imagine he'll end up more and more on this show. He's probably getting more publicity from our handful of listeners than he does from his own friggin' listeners. So
it kind of just goes back to what we were talking about, how this preseason game went, where it's like, and on Denver's side, they do need to figure out who their starting quarterback is. They did use a first-round pick on Bo Nix, and
well, that's the thing.
Yeah,
that's the thing. They need to see what they have in Bo Nix, because they have no tape on him other than what was in college.
Yeah,
we don't need to prove it from Jordan Love, because we saw what he did last year.
Yeah,
was it great throughout the whole year? No, but it was enough that they trusted in giving him the most money a quarterback is, the highest paid deal.
And it looked pretty damn good for his 3 plays last week Sunday. I mean, JT O'Sullivan made a whole 16-minute video on how impressed he was with his 2 throws and stuff. So yeah, it's what it is. Like I said, I have no problem with LaFleur and Hafley taking the meat and potatoes approach with this. It's preseason. My attitude has always been, we don't need to see you do the extravagant and the special. We need you to be able to do the in and out, the day in, day out work that, can you block a 3 technique? Can you block duo as a run, as a run blocker? Can you make a 5-yard hitch throw in rhythm and on time as a quarterback? That's all the shit they're working with Love. how is, the most, sophisticated thing they're probably doing is like, okay, let's take some deep shots and let's see how it's looking. Is it looking good in the cross match practices between them and the Broncos? Other than that, I don't care. And we saw it in the game. Like LaFleur called the very basic play sets. We didn't see anything. We didn't see any double passes or flea flickers or anything like that. Whereas, like I said, Peyton obviously went halfway deep in his playbook to make to make everything very easy for Knicks against, half of these playing like soft cover 3, soft cover 2 here and there. So it go figure. It'll play out, but
Well, and you said it, that what the Packers are doing right now with their starters is just giving them reps to get them in condition. It's
yep.
not to get them, this isn't, week 1 of the regular season and we have to do game planning for, the team. This is just to get reps and figure out what you have after your starting 22.
Yep.
So for you to come out and say, well, it is, I hope this is a wake-up call for, Jordan Love or the Packers because of Jordan Love. No, it's not. Shut up. There. Is that clean enough for you, Strauss?
No F-bombs, so I think he could use that. But
Now
yeah,
I can say it after I give him the clean audio. Shut the fuck up. I mean, really. I have, like I said, I have a feeling every fucking week it's going to be, well, Kyle Wallace said this one or Kyle Wallace said that one. So do better. As Joey Swoll would say, do better. Mind your own business.
What else you got for us today?
We'll do 2 more since we didn't have much of a game to really talk about. And
thanks, Packers.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There was.
Are you gonna do the Xavier McKinney one?
Yes, that's the one I was looking for. I was looking for my picture of it. I've been screenshotting these things. I just didn't happen to get them up on here. So Chad Forbes, and it sucks that I have to call out a Forbes because that's my grandma's maiden name. So
no!
for all your and for all you identity thieves, you're not going to get anything but fucking student loan debt and whatever. So, but Chad Forbes, who's I don't know what he is, but his Twitter handle is at NFL Draft Bites, so I don't know if he's like a draft guru or self-proclaimed or whatever. But this is the tweet he sent out just 4 days ago. Xavier McKinney, 16.75 mil per season and 23 mil guaranteed. Justin Simmons, 1 year, 8 million. Packers really overpaid for X. No. Come on now. It just, Simmons is older.
Farming. That's a farmer at work right there. He's tilling his fields.
Yeah, and I was going to look that up. Isn't Simmons like 30 or 29-ish?
Yeah, so you have the age gap. You have the fact that Simmons, who is a guy that both of us would have been open to, Gutekunst trading for last, at the deadline last year. But it's like, if this guy is such a commodity, why is he signing when preseason is, forget it's not just after the draft, it's not after the first week of preseason or of free agency. McKinney was at the top of the safety list in terms of free agency this year. So there is Green Bay did have to pay a premium for that. There's no way around that side of it, but Simmons did not sign the first week of free agency. He did not sign the second week of free agency. He did not sign before the draft. He did not sign right after the draft. He signed week 2 of the preseason. 32 teams, including his own, who we played tonight, said, we do not, or I guess 31 technically, but even the Falcons didn't sign him until, Monday or Tuesday or whatever the hell it was. Yeah. Because like their safeties like fell off the side of the sidewalk walking to practice or something.
Right. So they didn't sign him until they absolutely had to. So even they can be considered in this, that nobody wanted him at this point.
It's the whole Tom Brady got picked in the 6th round kind of. It's the equivalent of that, where it's like, and I know where you're going. Is just like to compare cost. It's like, okay, like I said, like you pointed out, age. McKinney is 25. Simmons is like 30 or 31 or
Well, I
something
just
like
had to
that.
look it up. McKinney just turned 25 on the 9th of this month. Simmons will be 31 come November. So
There
there's a
you go.
6-year age difference between the two of them.
Yeah.
One is just coming into his prime. The other one is coming out of his prime.
Yeah.
There's going to be a money difference between the
Yeah.
two of them.
And honestly, that's worse that he's signing 1 week into preseason and he's not getting the vet minimum. Like and I know it's only 1 year and stuff, but you paid like real money to get this guy to come to your team. And like you said, he definitely had leverage because he's like, you obviously need me to play here because you have.
Well, and I don't even know what the contract breakdown was. How much of it is guaranteed?
Yeah,
how...
I didn't bother to look into it because I didn't care that much. But yeah,
well, it just my point on that is how easy is it going to be to cut him if he doesn't live up to that number? Because it's 1 year, $8 million. So if he's only getting like 20% of it guaranteed, he's an easy cut. The Falcons can say, you're done. We'll just bring in a couple of UDFAs for what we just spent on you.
He's not part of the future. He is a band-aid on a broken leg at this point for the Falcons. There's a cost difference, but it's Green Bay is looking at McKinney to be a part of their hopeful Super Bowl contention the next 3 to 4 years. Simmons, like I said, like we both said, 32 teams looked at him. Green Bay had a lot of people going, they should sign him. They should sign him. We didn't. No one in the NFC or NFC North did. Yeah, it's whatever.
So, again,
we'll bark up a different tree.
Shut the fuck up. Maybe that's what this segment should be, is just shut the fuck up. All right, my last one is a non-football one, but I had to do this because this person really kind of pissed me off with their take. And I know it's going to kind of hit you a little bit because you are a fellow dog owner, but this person, Mindy, or at Mindy ISSER, and I only caught this from like a retweet, and this is the post and the added post to it. I still love my dog, but I worry / care about her a lot less since my baby was born. She gets all of her needs met, but the affection I feel for her has decreased. I think it's perfectly normal to feel this way, and most of my friends do. And then she had to clarify, because she was really getting called out on this, that I'm not saying neglecting or abusing your pet is good. To be clear, it is bad. I just don't care about my pet as much as I used to. It's sad because everyone told me this would happen, and I was so indignant and shocked, and it turned out that everyone was right. I don't know who the everyone in your fucking circle is, but they're wrong.
Yeah, I'd like to say, and someone who's like in her position, obviously I'm not a mom, I'm a dad kind of thing, but as someone who's in her relative
right, but you have
of,
kids.
Yeah, and had dogs, but it's like, you don't love your dog less. It's just that there are other beings that need your immediate attention all the time, but I don't love my lab any less. I don't love my Rottweiler any less. If anything, they probably keep me a little more sane at times than my kids do, just because they're a little more willing to put up and shut up with it when I tell them to. But sorry, Marisol, I'm just kidding mostly. but and the two of us, we talk about it all the time, where we will kind of stop and be like, do you think they're still happy, right? Like they're, we're talking about the dogs, where we're like, we have to, because we have to. You have to take care of your kids, kind of thing. You have to invest a lot of time to make sure. Jalen is 4. Our daughter is just turned 1 this year, and it's like they're at that stage where they can't take care of themselves. Whereas the dog is like, as long as you feed them and take care of wherever their living situation is, they're pretty. You take them on walks and stuff like that. But it's like they're relatively self-sufficient. Like 20 out of the 24 hours of a day, and obviously it helps that a bunch of it is spent sleeping, but no, like I do not love my dogs any less. Like if anything, the like the the dogs and the kids, they cross enrich, my feelings for each kind of thing. That's the way I look at it. So yeah,
Well,
I do not recognize that whole
that's
like,
the thing.
yeah.
That's the thing. That how many videos do you see where the dog and the kid are like sleeping together and riding in strollers together or in wagons together, or the
Yep.
kid and the dog are playing with each other? That doesn't seem like they get cared for less because the kid comes along. I fully admit I don't have kids, but my dog is my dog. I, you know, I don't think there's anything in the world that could make me care for my dog less. Whether it be a kid, whether it be a spouse, whether it be anything. I don't think there's anything, because, and this isn't to say anything bad about relations or anything like that, but they're called man's best friend for a reason.
Yeah.
Because that dog is going to be there for you no matter what. They might get pissed off at you because you didn't give them the treat that they wanted. They might, feel bad because you had to go go to work and they got left at home or whatever. But what happens when you get home? I know mine's sitting right by the door and jumping on me and everything else because I'm home.
Yep.
Or all I got to do is say, "Hey, it's bedtime," and the next thing I hear is little pitter patty walking, running across the floor to come in and go to bed. They are the loyal companion,
Yep.
and they're going to put it. That's why it's even, and I'm not saying this. I. That's why even to a point, an abused dog is still loyal to its owner.
Dogs put up with a lot. And that's why, like you said, not just the videos of like, you know, dog relating to pregnant mom kind of thing, dog relating to newborn child and all that kind of stuff. But it's the whole like, all the like, we don't deserve dogs tweets, posts, all of those and stuff. Like, yeah, there's a, dog, not Stockholm, it's Dogholm syndrome, whatever they have kind of thing and stuff. And yeah, like I I have one with Bucky, my lab, where I accidentally opened the door on his tail, and I felt so horrible because I he shrieked like, and like
Exactly.
labs are one of the most pain, like, they're like yeah, like you can like grab your lab, you can twist their like skin, you can do, and I'm not saying like don't come after me, Peter. I'm not saying to do this, but I'm like they're pretty robust and like ho hum, like you can like flick them and you just can hear like the little humming music coming out of their head. When I opened that door on Bucky's tail, the shriek he let out, I like jumped too because I was like, oh my god. And then and then when I got the door off his tail and got him out, and when I was apologizing to him, he looked at me like, thank you for saving me from the door that attacked me. And I'm like, oh no, dude, I totally did that to you. And he's just like, Daddy, thank you. Thank you. I love you so much. Like, thank you for saving me from the evil
Well,
door.
we just had an issue earlier. We just had an issue earlier during the game that me and my dog were sitting in watching it, and all of a sudden, something in the house just started letting off this just horrendous screech, and it sounded like a fire alarm, but it wasn't a fire alarm. It ended up being the carbon monoxide
Ooh.
alarm's battery was going dead. And my dog has her ears are so sharp because she's a beagle. She's a beagle, so she's got
Oh,
her hunting instincts and all that stuff. And she was getting upset, and she was all this. So I had to sit down after figuring out what it was and pick her up and hold her because she was freaking out because this friggin' alarm was going off. And it's like, okay, it's all right. The bad noise is gone. The bad noise is
yeah.
gone. But on the other hand, they do the same thing for us. I remember when I finally caught COVID back in December, one of the hardest things to do was keep my dog out of my room. And she didn't understand why she was having to stay out of my room. And it's like, Mavis, I don't want to take the chance of you getting sick with what I've got. And I know there's studies and everything that it don't, that doesn't matter, whatever. But it's still, there's a slim chance of that happening.
Yeah.
And just the hurt that I would see in her eyes when I would come out of my room to go to the bathroom or get something to eat or whatever. It's like, Mavis, I'm sorry. So after I got better, I had to spend like 3 weeks just cheering her back up
After
and
she
saying,
mauled
Mavis,
you
it
to
wasn't.
prove a point. Yeah.
So, but back to this, it was a bad point. Again, I don't know who your friends are, but they sound awful evil. Maybe you need a new friend group. You definitely don't deserve a dog. I'm sure somebody else would take better care of it. And also on the dog topic, be sure to adopt, not buy. There's a lot of dogs out there that really could use your love that are already in lockups. Don't feed the puppy mills and the breeders and stuff like that. Go get you somebody that's going to show you unconditional love because you rescued them from the pen. That's my PSA for this episode.
Yep. And yeah, there, like you said, there's many things. Like it's really great to come home to your kids, and it's really great to come home to your dog. They're similar, but they're also different, like in good ways. And I don't mean that I would ever pick one over the other. There's just there's great thing, like your kids can eventually talk to you. Your dog will always look at you in a special way that is never gonna go away, kind of thing. So yeah, yeah,
When
like we
my
said,
dog talks, I would rather listen to my dog talking than the kid talking, because my dog talking is laughable.
And on that note, we will put a bow on tonight's episode. Thank you for joining us on tonight's Ohana Packers Edition podcast. We can be found on our website, ohanapackers.org. Please check out our blog posts, the streams, the videos of all of our episodes between us and Cheese Talk Pod. Check out our merch, support the channel, get Joe some better signal boosters for his interwebs so that StreamYards won't take a dump on us every week. Follow the podcast on X
Or I
on
just
Twitter.
need the money.
Yeah, I know that. I was trying not to go so blunt, but we didn't want to get
I'm
into
poor.
puppy mill territory. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Ohana_Packers. You need to be following it to to be eligible for any drawings, any events we do. Also, like we said, especially as we get into the bye-week time, we're going to put out polls for what kind of coverage you want from us in that period. Excuse me. Follow the pod on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like and subscription. Positive and negative comments, please give us your feedback. We want to be producing the content you're looking for. We finally got Joe back. Joe is on that side. It's so bad that Joe has moved to the other side of the screen at this point. And to close out the night, we say go pack go and aloha.